You know, if you watched it all the way to the very end, they get to talking about energy, and Joe Biden says, we need to transition from the oil industry. And the president said, that's a big statement. And the truth is, they've been talking about abolishing fossil fuels, advancing their radical Green New Deal agenda, banning fracking. Whatever they're saying now, I promise you that's what they're planning on doing. President Donald Trump, he's been a champion for American energy from day one, and we are now a net exporter of energy for the first time in 70 years. What a choice. You know, men and women in North Carolina, I really think the choice we face this Tuesday is a choice between a Trump boom and a Biden depression. There was a recent study that just came out, nonpartisan study. It actually said that Joe Biden's economic policies, $4 trillion tax increase, $2 trillion Green New Deal, new taxes back in Obamacare with their socialized medicine are going to cost Americans 5 million jobs and will reduce your household income on average by $6,500 a year. So, after you leave here today, every hour between now and when the polls close here in North Carolina, you run into somebody that hasn't made a decision yet, I got one question for you to ask them, just one. I mean, say I was out at the airport the other day, I ran into Mike. And he said, if I could just ask you one question, this is what I ought to ask you. I mean, just look them in the eye and say, as Americans are starting to get back on our feet, starting to move our country forward, who do you really think can bring this economy all the way back? Just ask them that. Who do you really think can bring the American economy all the way back and then some in 2021? A career politician who spent 47 years in Washington, D.C., raising taxes, growing government, stifling our economy under regulation and economic surrender on trade, or a proven job creator who's driving the greatest economic recovery in American history? You tell him for this great American comeback, we need 4 more years of President Donald Trump in the White House. So it's about prosperity. Really, I think our economic recovery is on the ballot. I really do. But of course, security is the foundation of our prosperity. And it all starts with our national defense. And here in North Carolina, home of Fort Bragg and Camp Lejeune. I don't think I need to tell all the patriotic people gathered here today that under the last administration, you saw budget cuts that impacted our readiness. It's true. When we took office, I heard that it was about a third of the aircraft in our Air Force that were kept on the ground to be used as spare parts to keep other aircraft in the air. And Democrats in Washington are already talking this week about massive cuts in defense spending to fund their big government programs. Well, I'm proud to report to you, not just as your vice president, but as the proud father of a United States Marine, and I have an unworthy son-in-law that's a Navy pilot currently deployed. Under President Donald Trump, I can tell you, we've seen the largest investment in our national defense since the days of Ronald Reagan. We're finally giving our soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and Coast Guard the support they need to defend this nation. And with that renewed American strength, we've stood with our allies and stood up to our enemies. It's speaking of our allies, you know, 4 presidents in a row made a promise to our most cherished ally. But it was President Donald Trump who kept his word and moved the American embassy to Jerusalem, the capital of the state of Israel. And for the first time in 25 years, 3 Arab nations have recognized Israel's right to exist. We stood with our allies, with American strength. And last year, our armed forces captured the last inch of territory under the black flag of the ISIS caliphate. They took out their leader without one American casualty. And the Iranian general responsible for the death of hundreds of our service members, Qasem Soleimani, is gone. And I don't know if you heard about it. The news broke on your way here. Last night, U.S. Navy SEALs rescued an American taken captive in Niger just a couple of days ago. That U.S. citizen is safe, and no military personnel were injured in the operation. The armed forces of the United States of America are the greatest force for good in the history of the world. So we've stood with those who serve and their families. We've also stood strong from day one with all of you who've worn the uniform of the United States. In fact, in this great crowd, I expect there's an awful lot of men and women that have served in our armed forces. If you want to just raise your hand in the air, would you just give us an opportunity to say thank you for your service one more time? Thank you for your service, son. Thank you for your service. Thank you for our freedom. Thank you, man. When Joe Biden was vice president, you all remember, we saw years of scandal at the VA that shocked the conscience of the nation. We literally had veterans that were dying, waiting to receive the care at VA hospitals that they'd earned in the uniform of the United States. But under President Donald Trump, those days are over. We signed the most sweeping reform of the VA in 50 years. We fired 3,000 VA employees that weren't giving our veterans the care that they earned. And Veterans Choice is now available for every veteran in America. And when it comes to law and order, I couldn't be more proud to serve alongside a president who has stood every day with the men and women who serve on the thin blue line of law enforcement, and we always will. You know, when I was growing up in a small town in Indiana, we used to drive up Chicago, where my parents were from, over the holidays. We'd go to my grandparents' home. Me and my 3 brothers would stand in the living room when my uncle had come out dressed for work, wearing the uniform of the Chicago Police Department. That blue uniform, the badge, sidearm. Me and my 3 brothers would just look up in awe. You know, all of my heroes wear uniforms. President, I know what you know. The men and women who serve in law enforcement are some of the best people in this country, and they deserve the respect of every American every day. Let's hear it for our law enforcement that are with us here today. Will you just show them how much we appreciate all they do? to protect and serve our families. Oh, we're going to back the blue. You know, Joe Biden and his running mate say often that America is systemically racist. And they explain it in part by saying that they believe that law enforcement officers of every background have a, quote, implicit bias against minorities. When Joe Biden was asked if he'd support cutting funding for law enforcement, he said, yes, absolutely. Kamala Harris recently praised the mayor of Los Angeles for cutting $150 million out of the LAPD's budget. But let me make you a promise. People of North Carolina and America, with 4 more years of President Donald Trump in the White House, we're not going to defund the police, not now, not ever. We're going to back the blue, and we're going to back the blue for 4 more years. You know, you all know we don't have to choose between supporting law enforcement and supporting our African American neighbors or other minorities or families that live in our major cities. We've done both for the last 4 years. And we'll keep doing both for 4 more years. Under this president, we funded 4,000 new police officers on the street through the COPS program. When violence broke out in our cities this summer, we launched Operation Legend. It's already seen to the arrest of 2,500 violent offenders in cities across America. And at the same time, in those first 3 years, we had the lowest unemployment ever recorded for African Americans. We fought for educational choice for families all across this nation. We signed historically black colleges and universities, their biggest funding ever. We passed criminal justice reform and created 8,000 opportunity zones, bringing jobs and opportunities to our major cities. We're going to support law enforcement. We're going to support our African American community, and we're going to do it for 4 more years. So law and order is really about standing with those who protect and serve. But it's also about strengthening the foundations of the rule of law. And I'm proud to report, with the support of the people of North Carolina in 2016, we've already appointed more than 220 conservatives to our federal courts at every level. And they are all men and women of integrity who will uphold the God-given liberties enshrined in our Constitution, like the freedom of religion, the freedom of speech, and the Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms. $220 judges and more, counting. And that includes Justice Neil Gorsuch, Justice Brett Kavanaugh, and Justice Amy Coney Barrett. Isn't she great? How much did you love it when she held up that piece of paper? All these senators got stacks of papers in front of them. What did you bring? Nothing. I'll tell you, she's going to be an incredible justice on the Supreme Court. But she's really emblematic of all of those that we've been able to appoint to our courts. It's a legacy of really strengthening the foundation under our liberties. It's true. President Trump kept the word he gave to the people of North Carolina in appointing strict constructionists who won't legislate from the bench. But none of it would have been possible without the support of both of the senators from North Carolina. And so, right after you re-elect President Donald Trump for 4 more years, we need North Carolina to send Senator Tom Tillis back to the United States Senate for 6 more years. Because this is this is really about protecting our liberties, right? And the courts are the vanguard of our liberties, upholding all that's enshrined in those founding documents and in the heart of the American people. Because the truth is, when Joe Biden was vice president, our liberties and most cherished values were under assault. I mean, when Joe Biden was vice president, the freedom of religion was under steady assault by the federal government. The conscience rights of doctors and nurses was eroded. Religious charities had their conscience rights compromised. And Joe Biden actually, in the last administration, hauled a group of nuns who had taken a vow of poverty to help the underserved community, hauled them into court to force them to compromise their faith and heal under the mandates of Obamacare. And if you doubt that this intolerance is broad-based in the Democratic Party today, you know, the leading Democrat on the Judiciary Committee, 2 years ago, when Amy Coney Barrett was being considered for the Court of Appeals, said that they were concerned about Judge Barrett's Catholic faith because she said, quote, "The dogma lives loudly within you." And Hollywood elites started to ridicule Amy Coney Barrett's faith ever since. Well, I got news for the Democrats in Washington and their friends in Hollywood. That dogma lives loudly in me. That dogma lives loudly in you. And the right to live and work and worship according to the dictates of our faith lives loudly in the Constitution of the United States of America. Under President Donald Trump, we've stood strong for the freedom of religion. We repealed the Johnson Amendment, freeing up the pulpits of churches, places of worship across this country. We restored the conscience rights of doctors and nurses and religious charities. And President Donald Trump ended the assault on the little sisters of the poor, and the Supreme Court made it permanent. Under President Donald Trump, we're going to defend the freedom of religion of every American, of every faith. So help us God. And finally, with regard to values, where Joe Biden and Kamala Harris support taxpayer funding of abortion all the way up to the moment of birth, I couldn't be more proud to serve alongside a president who stands without apology for the sanctity of human life. So it's amazing to think what we accomplished in those first 3 years and the choice that we faced. I mean, in our first 3 years, we rebuilt our military, we revived our economy, we stood for law and order, liberties and life. And none of that would have been possible without the strong and consistent support of North Carolina's Republicans in Congress. It's true. So, right after you re-elect President Donald Trump, right after you send Dan Forrest to the governor's office and re-elect Senator Tom Tillis to the Senate, we need you to send all of North Carolina's Republican congressmen and women to a new Republican majority in the House and retire Nancy Pelosi once and for all. Out. You know, when you look at what we were able to accomplish with the Republican House and a Republican Senate just in those first 2 years, there's only one way you can describe it. In 3 short years, with your support, we made America great again. And then 2020 arrived, and the coronavirus struck from China. But before the first case of community spread anywhere in this country, President Trump did what no American president had ever done. He suspended all travel from China, the second largest economy in the world. President Trump put the health of America first. Now, Joe Biden said at the time that that was xenophobic, essentially said it was racist. He said it was hysterical, and that banning travel during a global pandemic would, quote, make things worse. But Joe Biden got it wrong. President Trump got it right. I can tell you, as the head of the White House Coronavirus Task Force, President Trump's decision to shut down all travel from China saved untold American lives because it bought us time to stand up the greatest national mobilization since World War II. It's true. We reinvented testing. We saw to the manufacture and distribution of billions of supplies of PPE to our incredible doctors and nurses. We went to work on medicines, therapeutics that are saving lives, even as we speak. And as I stand here today, we're just a short time away, before the end of this year, of having the first safe coronavirus vaccine and tens of millions of doses for the American people. And as we continue to contend with this pandemic, we see cases rising in communities around the country. I want to promise each and every one of you, we're going to continue to move heaven and earth to make sure that our doctors and nurses have all the supplies and resources they need to give any member of your family the level of care that we'd want a member of our family to have. We're going to keep protecting the vulnerable. We're going to keep saving lives. We're going to keep developing saving medicines until we reach that day that we put this coronavirus in the past with a vaccine. And under President Donald Trump, we are opening up America again. It's amazing to think after losing 22 million jobs at the height of this global pandemic, in the last 5 months alone, on the foundation that we poured in those first 3 years, on the unprecedented relief efforts the President secured for families and businesses from the Congress of the United States, we've already seen 11.5 million Americans go back to work, including 320,000 people right here in the Tar Heel State. We're opening up America. And the North Carolina economy is rolling back. But to open up America again, we need 4 more years of President Donald Trump in the White House. And to open up North Carolina, we need Dan Forest in the governor's mansion. I love that. How about win, Forrest, win? Win, Forrest, win. Let's hear it for Dan Forrest, everybody. He's going to go out there and bring North Carolina all the way back. The truth is, for all the progress we've made in the last 5 months, Joe Biden's talking about shutting down our economy again. He is. A couple days ago, we actually heard that several European countries are starting lockdowns. So you can bet that Joe Biden will lock down the American economy if he gets into the White House. Your schools are going to be closed again. Your churches will be closed again. Your small businesses all be shuttered on Main Street again. You know, right at the moment, the American economy is coming back, getting back on our feet. Right at the moment that we're making extraordinary progress with life-saving medicines and on the verge of a new vaccine, Joe Biden back in August told a reporter that he would, quote, shut it down. Joe Biden says we're in for a long, dark winter. Under President Donald Trump, we're going to distribute the vaccine. We're going to defeat the virus. We're going to open up America, and the best is yet to come. So we've gone through a time of testing, but we're coming to a time for choosing. We got 3 more days to win 4 more years. And I think you know the choice in this election has never been clearer. The stakes have never been higher. I mean, when you look at their agenda, higher taxes, open borders, socialized medicine, abortion on demand, a Green New Deal, defunding the police, it's clear. Joe Biden would be nothing more than a Trojan horse for the radical left. I mean, I saw in the newspapers that Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders are already angling for cabinet positions. Now, Joe Biden says that democracy is on the ballot. Well, I think our economic recovery is on the ballot. I think law and order are on the ballot. But I also think there's things far more foundational to our country that are on the ballot. You know, in this election, I think it's not going to be whether America ends up more Republican or more Democrat, more liberal or more conservative, more red or more blue. I think the choice in this election is whether America remains America. It's whether we're going to chart a course for our children and our grandchildren, build on our great American heritage of faith and family and freedom and patriotism and limited government and individual responsibility. Or whether we're going to let Joe Biden and the Democratic Party surrender to the radical left, shut down our economy, topple our heritage of freedom and traditional values, and send America on an inevitable path to socialism and decline. So, men and women of North Carolina, let me say from my heart, for everything that's always made this country exceptional and great, for the freedom that heroes through the generation have fought to defend, we need to decide right here and right now that Joe Biden will never be president of the United States. We're going to re-elect President Donald Trump for 4 more years. It's that important. It's that real, North Carolina. But I appreciate you all coming out today. I want to thank you for the honor of coming and hearing me out. You know, when the president called me 4 years ago to join this ticket, I said yes in a heartbeat. Because I knew he had the vision and he had the leadership qualities to bring America all the way back. Now, some people think we're a little bit different. But actually, I can tell you, we've become very close friends. We speak every day when we're traveling, just like we did this morning. And we spend hours a day together when we're both at the White House. And I want to tell all of you here in North Carolina, firsthand, I've been there when the cameras are off, when the bright lights are off, when nobody's looking. And I can assure you, against overwhelming resistance and obstruction by the Democrats in Washington, against the most unfair and unrelenting attacks by the national media that I've ever seen in my lifetime, There has never been a day gone by that my friend, your president, has not gotten up, turned his face like flint against the wind, and fought to keep the promises that he made to the people of North Carolina. Now it's our turn to fight for him. It's on, North Carolina. We need you to bring it. We got 3 more days to fight for America, to let freedom ring throughout our land. It's going to take all of us. So before I leave here, I got a couple things I'd like to encourage you to do in all that remains between now and when the polls close in the Tar Heel State. First and foremost, I need you to vote, North Carolina. Vote to re-elect President Donald Trump to the White House. I heard on the way here today is actually the last day to vote early in North Carolina. So after we get done here, you could go down to the Wilson County Board of Elections, 112 Douglas Street East. They are open until 3. Plenty of time to vote to re-elect President Donald Trump for 4 more years. So get it done. Leave from here. And remember, friends don't let friends vote alone. Bring a neighbor, bring a coworker, and vote to re-elect President Donald Trump for 4 more years. You know, those who get the most votes win, right, Dan? So we need you to vote. Secondly, after you vote with a friend, I encourage you to do 2 more things. First of them is just go tell somebody. Tell somebody why you came out on this beautiful Saturday to hear this president's vice president. Tell them why you feel so passionately about what we've done as a country. All that we accomplished in those first 3 years in this president's steady leadership in the most challenging year of my lifetime. Tell them about the choice that we face and what we owe to our children and our grandchildren to preserve. And I don't know if you all saw, we were on 60 Minutes the other night, the president and I were. Yeah, right. But the president got this question in his interview, which was not a friendly interview. But he gets a question in the interview where the reporter said, "So, how would you describe your supporters?" And without hesitation, President Trump said, "They are people who love our country." So go out and tell your neighbors and friends about your love for this country and that we need a president who loves America and loves our freedom for 4 more years. And finally, in these challenging times, I'd encourage you to have faith. Have faith in America and in the boundless capacity of the American people to overcome any challenge. And also have that other kind of faith. If you're inclined, as we are at the Pence house, to bow the head and bend the knee from time to time, I'd encourage you to do that too. 3 days to Election Day. It's a good time to pray for America. Pray for our families that have suffered loss this year. Pray for all the doctors and nurses caring for those struggling to this day. Pray for all those who haven't gotten back to work yet or back to school yet. Pray for our military at home and abroad and all those who protect and serve. And pray for every freedom-loving American that we will do in our time all that we can to preserve our freedom for ourselves and our posterity. And when you pray, pray with confidence in those ancient words that Americans have clung to in much more challenging times, that if his people who are called by his name will humble themselves and pray and turn, that he'll do like he's always done in the long and storied history of this nation. He'll hear from heaven, and he'll heal this land. This one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So pray for America. Pray for all the American people. It'll make a difference. And I'm just absolutely confident, seeing all your shining faces today, that if all of us do all that we need to do, to vote, to speak out, and to pray, that we're going to have a great victory all across North Carolina and all across America. And with Senator Thom Tillis in a renewed Republican majority in the United States Senate, with North Carolina's Republican delegation in a new Republican majority in the House of Representatives, with Dan Forrest in the governor's office, with President Trump in the White House, and with God's help, we will make North Carolina and America more prosperous and secure than ever before. We'll make North Carolina and America more united than ever before. And we will make America great again. Again. Thank you all very much. God bless you. God bless America. Now let's go get it done, North Carolina.